Welcome back to the ATU Sports Corner. We are now covering the East and the Midwest regions of the March Madness bracket. I just got done doing the West and the South. I finished my part, my 50% of the perfect bracket, because there's not going to be a game missed in there. So now it's on to Brandon, and we're starting with the East region. Initial thoughts, what do you got?
I don't know about all that perfect bracket stuff, but if there is a bracket I don't feel confident about, it's this one. I think this East region could get really weird, and I also feel like it could be really chalk. So I don't know. I'm probably going to be talking myself through a lot of these picks because I haven't really made up my mind on a lot of them yet.
And the first game we're going to head to in this East region is going to be the Siena Saints, the 16 seed, against the number 1 seeded Duke Blue Devils in Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah, I have made up my mind on this one. I'm taking Duke. It's nice to see the Saints dancing once again. They had a lot of success in years past. They faltered for a little bit, but now they are back in the dance. But Blue Devils will roll.
Yeah, I don't think, like I said in the earlier shows, 158-2 1 seeds are against 16 seeds, and I don't think Duke is going to falter even with their injuries that they're struggling with. I think Duke rolls on pretty easy. The next game we got is also in South Carolina, and it involves your Horned Frogs, the number 9 seeded TCU Horned Frogs against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Bruce Thornton is really going to need some help if the Buckeyes are going to advance. What do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Thornton is that guy for the Buckeyes. He is an absolute bucket getter. But outside of him, I mean, John Mobley's a very strong player. Devin Royal can be at times. But, I mean, this team's hot right now. They are playing some of the best basketball in the country. But so are my very own TCU Horned Frogs. We picked up a lot of big wins lately, and a lot of that on the back of the big play, which I think will be the difference in this game. David Punch and Xavier Edmonds have been playing their best basketball lately. Xavier Edmonds took a little bit of time to transition from the JUCO level, but now he is playing like one of the best players in the Big 12 Conference. And I think with those two big men, if they can get just enough shot making from Jaden Pierre, Lila Vicious, and Brock Harding, I think my Frogs can get the job done.
TCU's wins, I think personally, they have one of the most impressive resumes win-wise. They've beat Florida, Iowa State, and Texas Tech this year. And I think that Texas Tech game, that was without JT Toppin, but they're still a 5 seed with them. They beat Florida. They beat Iowa State. Your Horned Frogs definitely have a good chance.
I like to think so. Maybe this is my bias showing through, but these are two teams that are playing at a very high level right now. And I think, to be honest, if they are matched up with any other 8s or 9s, I think that they would be moving on in those matchups as well. So I think tough draw for Ohio State, but I got to roll with my Frogs.
Now, in the West region, we talked about Brandon's preseason pick of the Purdue Boilermakers. Now we're on to mine, the number 5 seeded St. John's Red Storm. I think they should have been seeded higher, personally. And they're playing against Northern Iowa, who they have the best defense in college basketball statistically, with the lowest points per game, better than Houston. What do you think is going to unfold here?
Yeah, St. John's, I do believe, is absolutely underseeded out of 5. They are ranked number 10 in the AP poll, but just a 5 seed. Contrast the styles here. Northern Iowa, very defensive, very slow-paced. Of course, a Rick Pitino team is going to play well on defense, but they're a much faster playing team. And I don't know if Northern Iowa is going to be able to keep up with that pace. They like to keep it slow. Trey Campbell played very well with that slow pace in Arch Madness. But if St. John's can speed them up, which I think they will, I just have a hard time seeing the Panthers pulling off the upset. So I'm going to have to go with the Red Storm here.
It's 61.3 points per game given up to opponents by Northern Iowa. But St. John's is deep. They have a lot of players that can score the basketball at a high level. Is that going to give them any trouble?
I think it will. I mean, this St. John's team, I think, is very different from the ones of past where they fell short in the tournament. Zuby Ejiofor is obviously still there, but I think he has made strides as a passer that have really opened up their offense. And I think they just have guys who are more capable of creating their own shot.
Now we move on to another matchup in San Diego, California. This will be between California Baptist and Kansas. They have potentially a top 3 potential number 1 overall pick in Darren Peterson. Is he going to show it in this tournament?
I hope so. It's been a very weird situation with Darren Peterson all year. I have seen a lot of discourse actually about this game, about the travel. Cal Baptist, I believe, is like 20 miles away from where this game will be played. And sometimes that travel does play a major factor. Don't think it will in this one. I do like Dominique Daniels, the star guard for the Lancers, but I think at the end of the day, Kansas just has too many great players. Darren Peterson, Trey White, Flory Badunga, Melvin Council, all are capable of having major performances, and I just don't think that CBU can take down all of them. I'm rolling with the Jayhawks.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the Jayhawks win this game. California Baptist, they have some high scores, but I just think Kansas, they're too well-rounded. Moving on to a matchup, this is a team that I've harped on for weeks now. In the South Florida Bulls, coming in at an 11 seed, they're taking on the number 6 Louisville Cardinals. Who you got?
This is a really tough one for me. One of the tougher matchups of the first round to predict, in my opinion. South Florida, one of the best mid-majors. Wes Ennis has played very well, transferred up to Division I. Isaiah Nelson, Joseph Pinion, Ojamafo, C.J. Brown, all of these guys score very well. But at the end of the day, I think I'm going to roll with the Cardinals. Pat Kelsey is a coach I'm a really big fan of. Ryan Conwell has played really well for them. Brown, I know their star freshman point guard is questionable. I think if he does end up missing this game, that will open up things a lot. But Javon Hadley and Isaac McNeely, as well as Sananda Fruit, Adrian Woodley, I just keep going down this roster and I keep seeing impact players. And I think that's the key. Louisville has struggled against top teams this year, but USF is not a top team, and I think that is the difference in this one. I'm rolling with the Cardinals.
The biggest thing that scares me in this matchup for Louisville, they're 7-5 without Mikael Brown this year, and South Florida is red hot. I think they could definitely pick up a win here, and that's who I'll be taking personally, but I could definitely see it falling in Louisville's favor as well. But I think it's going to be a lot on the shoulders of if Mikael Brown is going to play. Moving on to the next matchup, we have a team that got hot recently also in the Michigan State Spartans. They worked their way up to a 3 seed, and they're taking on North Dakota State, who played very well in their conference championship. They come in at 27-7, taking on the 25-7 Michigan State Spartans.
You know, I'm not going to think too hard about this one. When it's March, you put your trust in Izzo. He just always seems to find a way. Jeremy Fears, despite all the shenanigans, I don't even know what came out of my mouth just then, but he has obviously had a lot of controversy around him, but he's a very good player, one of the best players in the country, and he has a strong supporting cast. Jackson Kohler, I'm sure Cohen Carr is going to have an absolutely ridiculous dunk in this game, but I think Sparty is just going to be too much for the Bison.
I can definitely agree with that one. Safe pick there. Moving on to a game that has a lot of upset potential, but not too much in a 7-10 matchup, and that's between the UCLA Bruins and the UCF Knights. Mick Cronin has an interesting squad this year. They've been in the news a little bit, tossing out his own player. Mick Cronin, he's an interesting coach. A lot of Bruin fans think he should be gone after this year. We're going to see how that unfolds. Can UCF knock him off in this first round?
Interesting is the right word. There's a lot of interesting things going on in this game. UCF has not played well of late. They have a very talented squad. Riley Kugel, Themis Folks, Jordan Burks, JaMichael Stillwell are all very solid players, but they're just not playing their best basketball right now, and UCLA absolutely is. Now, I am very concerned about the injuries to Tyler Bilodeau and Donovan Dent. They're questionable for this game, but I do believe if they are good to go, I have a hard time seeing the Knights pull this one off, and I'm going to roll with the Bruins.
Yeah, I really like Donovan Dent. I think he was one of the best players in the transfer portal coming into this season, landed at UCLA. Cronin's getting the squad together. They could potentially make a run, but after they get past UCF, they're most likely going to face the UConn Huskies. If they can get past the Furman Paladins, who just a few years ago, it feels like it was yesterday, knocked off the Virginia Cavaliers in this very first round. This will be in Philadelphia. Who do you got winning this one?
You know, if I were to take a 15 in this tournament, it would be the Furman Paladins. They are playing their best basketball right now. They dealt with a lot of injuries early on in the season, but they have gotten back healthy. And in the SoCon tournament, you saw what they were capable of doing. I don't think they're capable of beating UConn quite yet. I think that the Huskies just have too much firepower. They didn't look good in the Big East final, but I do think they will look good in this one. Not going to put too much thought into it. I'm just going to roll with the Huskies.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with you. If there is going to be a 15 seed to do it this year, I think Furman has a great chance to be that team. But UConn is really good, and they lost that big game to St. John's in their conference championship, but I think they're going to bounce back with some weight on their shoulders. They're going to want to perform great in this tournament, and I think it starts by beating Furman. Moving on to the round of 32, it's going to be the Duke Blue Devils, #1 seed, against your TCU Horned Frogs, a 9 seed. Are we going to see a little bit of bias play into this?
You know what? Caleb Foster is out. Patrick Gongba is questionable. I feel like those are two of the 3 most important teams to this Duke Blue Devils squad. And if those guys don't go, man, you know what? I'm going to let my bias shine through. I think if those guys cannot play, the TCU Horned Frogs are playing their best basketball. They have beat teams of Duke's caliber. And I think, especially if Gongba doesn't go, I mean, they're going to have a hard time guarding those 2 big men, David Punch and Xavier Edmonds. They're going to crash the boards. I don't know if Malik Brown's going to be able to handle them. So, you know what? Am I biased? Yes. Am I having fun? Absolutely. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to take my Horned Frogs to get it done in South Carolina, just down the road from where the Duke Blue Devils play. But I will say, an interesting wrinkle to this, the Tar Heels are also in Greenville. So I believe that UNC fans will absolutely be at this game rooting hard against Duke.
You might have just ruined our perfect bracket there. Even though we have Vandy in the Final Four or the Elite Eight, wherever I had Vandy. TCU taking off Duke. I can't say I'm surprised coming from a Horned Frog fan, and I can't say I'd be too surprised if it happened, especially with these injuries. I personally got the Blue Devils winning that one. Moving on to the next matchup, we got St. John's and Kansas. 2 pristine head coaches, Rick Pitino and Bill Self. How's this one going to play out?
You know, this is one of the hardest games for me to pick in the entire tournament. But I think what's going to be the deciding factor for me is the fact that one of these teams has just had so much uncertainty throughout the year. The Jayhawks have been so up and down. Darren Peterson has been in, he's been out, he's been playing, he's been asking out of the game. And I trust Rick Pitino. Maybe I shouldn't after the way he lost in the second round just last year, but I've always been a Pitino fan. I've always liked his teams all the way back to the Louisville days. And I think with their ball movement that they've added this year, I think that's the difference that will get them on to the Sweet 16 despite last year's failure.
You got a 9-5 matchup heading into the Sweet 16 at the top of the East. We now move on to your next matchup. That is going to be Louisville and Michigan State. Both these teams have some highlight players. Cohen Carr, Mikael Brown if he's there. This is going to be another interesting one.
Yeah, and this is interesting, but I think I'm going to go back to what I mentioned earlier about Louisville struggling against top-tier teams, and Sparty is absolutely that. Louisville has really done a great job of beating up on the lower competition this year, but they have not beat the top teams whatsoever, and I think that's going to be the difference. Jeremy Fears, I think, will do a great job of scoring on this very good offensively Louisville backcourt. I'm not sure how good they are defensively. I know Hadley is a very good defender, but who is he going to pick up? I know a lot of times he has to guard bigger players. Might end up with a Cohen Carr matchup in this one, and I think Sparty gets it done.
I completely agree with that one. Sparty has played great basketball here recently. Now moving on against another team that's played great basketball in the next matchup. That's UCLA and UConn. Who's going to win this matchup?
You know, this is kind of the battle of like 2 guards who have disappointed me this year. I picked Solo Ball to be the player of the year in the Big East. He has not lived up to that. Donovan Dent has not shot the ball particularly well all season long. But you know who is playing really well right now? Donovan Dent. He has finally come around. And once again, I think if UCLA is healthy, the way that they're playing right now, they picked up a win over Illinois. They played well in the Big Ten tournament. I think they can carry some momentum. And I'm going to take another upset in this bracket. I'm going to move the Bruins on to the Sweet 16.
Your Sweet 16 is set with a 9-5 and a 3-7 matchup.
I told you, this is the bracket I think can get weird.
A 9, and I thought I was crazy for, I'm crazy for putting Vandy all the way. But this is wild.
It is.
It's March, And that brings us to TCU St. John's, a 9-5. Very peculiar matchup. Don't see it very often. Are the Horned Frogs going to stay hot?
You know, I haven't made up my mind yet. I'm going to sit here and we're going to talk it through together, ladies and gentlemen. This is a really interesting matchup. I think that St. John's does have the bigs who can guard TCU's. They have Mitchell and Ejiofor down low. And I think at the end of the day, with that, I think the Johnnies are going to be too much, especially with the game being in D.C. That's just down the road for the Red Storm. That's a long trip for the Horned Frogs. So I think, unfortunately, this will be the end of the run for Jamie Dixon's squad. But a heck of a year for the Frogs. We're not supposed to be in the tournament. And just being a 9 seed, to be honest, I am more than happy with that. If the Frogs lose on that first game Thursday, I will not be upset, but I have faith.
Well, right now you got them beating the Duke Blue Devils.
I do.
And that would be something. Moving on to your next game, we got St. John's now moving on to the Elite Eight, and we have Michigan State and UCLA as the potential suitors to face them. Who's it going to be?
You know, we're getting weird, man. We're getting real weird. I think with the way the UCLA Bruins team is playing right now, with all of their guards back, Trent Perry, Donovan Dent, and Sky Clark, all in the lineup, I think this UCLA team is very difficult to beat. Tyler Bilodeau, Xavier Booker, and Steven Jamerson are also very solid down low for them. Once again, I think that this is a team that can make a run, and that's exactly what I am taking them to do. Even though it's quite a travel from LA to DC, but you know, it's a little bit of a travel for East Lansing as well. So we'll call it even though it's not.
And I got a fun fact for you here. This is what the ESPN Tournament Challenge is telling me here. A number 5 seed has never faced a number 7 seed in the NCAA
Never?
tournament. Never. So
Well,
you're making history, Brandon.
Well, we'll see.
You're making history here.
I'm going to be honest, I feel a lot less good after hearing that.
With the St. John's. I love it. They were my preseason pick. Let's go. St. John's Red Storm taking on the UCLA Bruins, the first ever matchup of a 5-7 seed to advance to the Final Four. Who's going to pull it out?
You know, this is really interesting. Two teams that I feel like absolutely have the talent to do this, but maybe haven't shown that all year long. But I think the difference in this game will be 3-point shooting in an environment like this where these two teams have not played in this arena. It's a new arena to them, but UCLA has a number of players who shoot it very well from 3. Donovan Dent, his 3-point percentage is bad this year, but other than him, they have some very solid shooters. St. John's is not really the case. Ejiofor doesn't shoot it well from 3. Hopkins doesn't. Sellers is okay. Jackson's okay. Sanon's okay. Mitchell doesn't even bother to pull up from out there. So I think that 3-point shooting. And Mick Cronin, after all of the drama he has put his team through this year, maybe that's just what they needed. I'm taking the Bruins to be in the Final Four. He's speechless.
I'm speechless. I just got shamed for at least 5 minutes for having the Vanderbilt Commodores in my Final Four.
I wouldn't say shamed.
Shocked. You're shocked. Beyond
That's true.
shocked. And now I'm beyond shocked. The UCLA Bruins in the Final Four. It is March.
And it's madness.
I think you could have ruined the perfect bracket for us there.
I don't think we were going perfect no matter what, man.
I
I'll tell you, this isn't what's going to happen. We're not going to be right. But we're having fun, and that's the important part, to give our input, tell you what we think can happen. Because if we just sit here and we go chalk, where's the fun in that? You guys can watch that on any little
true.
network. You can go on ESPN, CBS Sports. You can see chalk brackets.
That
We're going to
is
have
very
some
true.
fun here.
That is very true. I guarantee you no one's going to have UCLA or Vandy playing in the Final Four. That's who we had. They're on the same side.
Man, I didn't even think
That's
of
going to
that.
be another 7-5. Not only have they never played in the tournament,
And then
they're
they
going to
never
play
played
twice
twice.
in 1 year. That's what we got. That's what Brandon has for the East region. And if you want to check out our other videos, we'll have Brandon with the Midwest, Michigan 1-seeded. Let's see if they can advance.